Okay, family, friends, and potential. I say that because my friends and family are constantly wondering what the heck I'm doing. And here I'm standing on something, obviously, something big. And it is a boom truck. Pretty cool, actually. We just kind of figured it all out as far as the use of the boom. The truck itself, 43,000 miles, 7,500 hours, all the maintenance records since brand new. Service records, a ton of service records, like literally, I mean, down to the grommets on the thing. Ran excellent. I just drove it from Denver all the way to Junction, took a couple bypasses, so about 300 miles, and it did excellent. I have a video of it running around the highway from this morning. Went through all the hydraulic areas on it to make sure there's nothing pulled up that you can even see leakage wise, but nonetheless, it's something that, I wanted to do. So it looks like it's got almost, who knows when these were put on, but they look almost new, brand new. On these top ones, those have all been replaced fairly recently. Those bottom ones have not, but they're not leaking. You can go through these. These aren't, I mean, you'll spend a little bit on these because we have to build them every once in a while for our forklifts. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of those are probably, especially the longer ones, you have to put one of those on, which you will. Eventually, you will have to put a hydraulic line on. It is just normal maintenance on anything like this, and I've learned that not necessarily the hard way, although it was an eye opener the first time I had to do one on a loader because those are like yay big, and it was extremely expensive. Plus, it happened during COVID, yada yada yada. So. Anyway, just keep that in mind if you're if I'm watching this video as a prospective buyer or a buyer of anything that's hydraulic. Asking how old the lines are. I would say if you're seeing seepage, if you're seeing stuff like that, they're probably on their way out. But at some point or another, you will blow a hydraulic line on something if you own anything hydraulic. Okay, so that's my little. If you don't know hydraulics or heavy machinery, just to kind of keep in mind, not something to dissuade you or anything, but it is something to kind of help open your eyes if you're not familiar with heavy equipment. So again, on this one, I don't see there's no signs of any leakage anywhere. There's no pools of oil. The wiper seal on the front of this cylinder has got the residual on it. It doesn't seem to be seeping anywhere, leaking down, pulling up. So I don't think it's leaking. Those wiper seals, even on my forklift, after we literally replaced it brand new, start getting buildup on the outside of them just from dust and stuff. I mean, you're still going to have grease buildup on some things, but and that's only on one. The other cylinder's clean as a whistle. So nothing I think you're going to have to tend to or anything like that, but something I'll show you when I get down from here. Pretty neat setup. It's basically an old fire truck is what they took this from. And then this whole unit is attached to this bed. This bed, I was thinking if I wanted just to use the flatbed and ditch this later, I could, and you can. But this bed is attached to this unit, so you'd be better off. And what I would do if I did that is I would sell off the top unit, which is a possibility, especially in somebody's case that needs something a little bit newer and emission compliant with the truck. That's the air horn Steve's obviously playing with. Scared me a little bit there. Anyway, so yeah, if you were going to bring it to California, you'd probably want to be able to use this bed and this whole setup on top of maybe a newer chassis, as these trucks are no longer emission compliant as far as that goes. So it's a old fire truck snorkel is what they call it, a Pitman snorkel. It literally has all right there, and I'll show you this when we get up and close. All of the controllers that used to sit at the back of the fire truck are sitting right there, and some of them still control the boom for a ground operator, although you have to sit on your ass, excuse my French, to control those. So I wouldn't necessarily want to do it from there. You'd want to do it from up here, but it is there for a safety, kind of a cool safety feature. And then obviously you have your mechanical override stuff here, which is that steering wheel looking thing there. That essentially pops off. That one controls the swivel. And then you have you pull that off, put it on the lower one, and that controls it up and down. hook there for safety here. You have a hydraulic hook at the at the front, attaching it to the front of the cab, or the top of the cab, or essentially the headache rack. And then of course you have these outriggers, which have to be in use with this thing, and you can tell just by being up here, and I'm not even very high, that if you didn't have those up, it'd be very unstable. So you got to have those, you got to have the pads on them and whatnot. But you know, as far as how long it would take to get it up and running, you'd probably want to do kind of a walkthrough like you normally do on any heavy equipment prior to use, just to make sure everything looks good. And you're going to want to do that on anything, and I'm not going to educate you there, but we can walk you through it as far as how to use it in the beginning and then what to look for, yada yada yada. So you'll want to do that. And then as far as like how long you get to the job site, put how long till you get it set up. I mean, you could have this thing about 10 minutes, no joke. It was put the outriggers down, check the level, make sure that's good, hop up here, unlock your pin here. Your other one's hydraulic. It comes up when you put your outriggers down, and from there it's essentially good to go. Obviously there's here I'm on my own property, so I'm not in a harness or anything, but you definitely need to be harnessed in if you were on a job site. There's harness attachments and OSHA requirements, so you'll have to look into your own state laws as far as that stuff goes, as far as pertaining to that. And then that's about it. Okay, I'm trying to cover everything. Sometimes videos get a little bit long-winded. I apologize about that, but it is kind of a unique, if you're not used to boom lifts, and I know there's going to be 90% of people who are, but there's going to be a first-time user out there, and really you really should have some sort of safety class. You may not even be required to, depending on the state you're in, how to operate one of these and use it. And with overhead lines, I mean, when you're using a piece of equipment this big, you're going to really need to be careful of your surroundings, obviously, and overlines are a big hazard. I mean, we're fortunate where I'm at right now. The closest overline is probably 50 yards out there, but I've seen horror videos on that, people raising into stuff they're not aware of that stuff going on. So give a good look around your surroundings before you get up in the air on this thing, and then harness in and whatever else you're required to do and want to do, and then essentially this is your guy, which pretty cool actually. Again, I'm not going to get too high on this. I'm not a huge height fan. I don't mind it here, and I'll go up a little high and swivel it and stuff, but I do want to show it to you. And let's zoom in here real quick. So there's essentially, you got push down, pull up. Okay, that's going to raise and lower the boom. You're going to have swivel. That's going to be left, right. Okay, just like normal. And then back forward will give you some motion as well. So let's go ahead and take her up a little bit more. Right. So lines, you can hear that. That's hydraulic. See, and I'm already too high where I'm like, I don't like this. So this is about a 45 foot. Oh boy. Yeah, it's probably good enough for me. We're probably about a 45 foot boom is what we estimated it at. Is it rocking down there? Does it feel okay? Does it feel? I want to ask Steve, make sure. It feel okay, or is it moving that pretty good? So that's the first time I had it up this high. So I mean, it'll go way high, but I'm not going to go too much here. Get a nice view of the valley. My mom's going to watch this and probably not like this video, to be honest. But so part of the reason I want to do this is because we got a little boy in there, and he's going to see this. And there's no way I'm bringing him up in this thing. So don't even worry about it. Chris, Katie, Mom, okay? So we're turning it left now, okay? And this is real smooth. It's a, going up and down is like an old ride, but going left here, okay? Where you can see it moving around. Nice and easy, okay? And then again, we'll go back here. And this is from what I read about, this is a 2-man basket. So you know, it would be kind of nice to have a buddy up here right now, especially with my, I can't imagine going all the way up in this thing. I mean, I know I was gonna play with it a little bit and see, but this is plenty high for my liking, and I'm not too high up, but I've got to be 2 stories, maybe a little bit more. So the other thing with your surroundings too, and again, I'm kind of in an area that I don't have to worry about too much, although I would if I was down there, but as I swivel this around, it's not just your height you got to deal with, it's also, you know, this is a long boom, so depending on how you're extended, you might think you're in the clear, but you know, the swivel around on this guy, which again I'll measure, but I bet it's 20, 25 feet. A little high. I can't imagine extending this all the way up. No way, man. It is. I don't know how much higher out how much higher it goes. You know? You think that goes straight up? Yeah, that's not gonna happen. It goes way higher than I want to be. It's already high enough. So anyway, yeah, I think that's about it. And the other thing you got to watch too, and this is top of the cab has a ding on it on that left side there, which my guess is they dropped something. Not bad, but it definitely has a ding on it. I just noticed it when I was up here. It's a little depressed. You could probably get in there and pop it. You know, it's not heavily damaged or anything, but the reason I bring this up is because if you lower this thing down, you know, in the wrong spot, for example, I mean, obviously you got to have some common sense operating anything, but lowering it down, you know, when it's not at the right angle, you're going to cause some damage to something. I know that's not from that, because there's no crinkle, there's no like sharp, you know, that looks like they probably dropped something at some point, or maybe it wasn't anything to do with this, maybe something fell on it from somewhere else. And again, it's not bad, it's just depressed in. It almost looks like, you know, but nonetheless, my point to this is that the lift here needs to be brought down in the right way. You know, you don't, and properly, you don't want to push down on something elsewise, you know what I mean? So, and just anything like this is just a little bit more caution. You're not going to be racing around on this thing. I mean, you may eventually, but and oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if this was down, that's my whole point to that spiel was, if this was down all the way and I swing this in, I'm gonna crush something down there, right? So it's got to be up enough. You don't want to bring it way down and then swivel this thing. You want to be up somewhat, at least a little bit, and then swivel it. Which again, it's just, you know, and that gives you a good view underneath. It's super dry, it's dusty, and that cylinder I actually thought was a little bit wet, but that's actually just a lot of dust buildup, that's normal. So nothing even on that one. So we'll go bring it back around, and again, I'm just using the left here. I'm doing it one-handed, so it's not even jarring. You know, you think it would be, you know, somewhat bouncy, and it really isn't bad. So, and then you're just going to have to kind of gauge it, eyeball it, make sure you're kind of lined up, and then when you get down, you're not going to want to go all the way down on that until you're somewhat down. Ideally, you'd have an operator at the bottom, trying to, you know, just helping you out. I guess you could do it without, but I would probably, at least in the beginning, until you got familiar with it, get that that way. So, okay, so we're gonna go down with it. So it's just a press down, okay, and we'll see the way it goes down here. So now notice something here, right? So when I press down, I'm not, if you go forward on this or backwards on this, that lowers this up, raises and lowers the bottom one, okay? The bottom boom. By pushing down or up, now we're doing this one. So it's like a video game or a joystick, you know, you're gonna have to get familiar with the way these things operate. And took me a few minutes to do, it's not hard. So right now I'm only messing with the top boom coming down, and that's gonna allow me to get to where I can see what I'm doing and see that lock pin and see how I'm guiding it down, and I can set the lower boom on the resting pad there, and then when we get outriggers up, that seems to be what locks and unlocks those that lock up there at least. Okay, so And again, one more thing up here on that front, you know, I'm coming down. I don't want to lower it down on the cab until I'm all the way down, and that way, or excuse me, until the upper one's down. I want to lower it down there until I make sure that I'm somewhat lined up, and so I can kind of eyeball. The lock is here. You can't really see it in the video. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Okay, so there's the lock here, and here is essentially the striker or the lat, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I got to line that guy up with that guy. It's pretty easy to see. Light visibility on both sides. On this side, I can't see. There we go. So this side, if you notice, I cannot see where it's gonna go down and rest on. So that means I'm a little bit over. Okay, so we'll just move this guy around like we normally do. And we're up high enough. We're not gonna crush anything up top. It's opposite of what you think. Okay, so now I'm starting to see that guy. We are almost there. Yeah, right about there. Okay. All right, so that look good there? So now, again, down. Let me zoom out here. So down and up, that's the top, boom, okay? Proper literature or the verbiage, I'm not sure, but this one up, this one back and forth is the lower boom. So go back on it instead of pushing down and up, okay? So just back here, and obviously watch your front. And then I'm gonna go over just a little bit, get that pin to line up. And it has a little bit of tolerance there, but that resting on that look like it's resting on it. Okay, so and what we're saying there is, again, this is what I was talking about earlier, you're not gonna, you just want to let it go down until it's resting on it. You don't want to push down. It still has hydraulic pressure under it, and you could potentially, I don't think you'd have a lot of downforce there because it does have a limiter, I'm sure, but you would, you know, could potentially bend that down up there. So just like I said, common sense. Okay, so that gives you a huge spiel on that. I'm gonna crawl out of it real quick before I shut it all down and kind of show you how the reverse way we set these up, and this is actually the correct way to do this. Okay, so that's comes out again. You're harnessed into it, so you unhook obviously and come down. My tall butt, get me over here. Okay. By no means is this a video on how to operate a boom lift. This is just showing potential buyer, you know, it all functions and operates. So you guys, whoever, you know, whether you're buying somebody else's equipment or buying this one, you need to do your due diligence on getting yourself schooled, educated, and whatnot before you operate anything like this, or, you know, it caused serious injury, death, you know, pretty much anything. So another thing up here too, while I'm standing here, you know, we're playing with it here, but again, not something you're going to want to be standing up here. Nobody should be sitting up here, standing up here when this thing's in operation. This thing would easily come down on somebody, swivel into somebody, and whatnot. So this is that hook here. You can see that guy goes there, and essentially it would be, and this is hard to do one-handed, but let's see here. This would be for when you're driving down the road, I assume, is to lock it in. It wasn't actually locked like this. It was just raised up into it. That's got what? Yeah. So we'll mess with that, and that's just down the road procedures. But let me give you a little bit of a shot what we're talking about here. So here's these latches, right? And it's all hydraulic controlled, and there's no switch for these. Essentially, these seem to run off, and we'll verify this in a minute, these seem to run off the outriggers. So when the outriggers come down, these unlatch, and that's absolute because they don't want you using this boom without these outriggers down. It would just not be stable. So okay, so we're good everywhere. I think we can just go ahead and suck this thing back up, which here's your working here, right? So here's your outriggers, and it tells you our outrigger set, do not operate, yada yada yada. Okay, so and there's your pitman snorkel, right? Snorkel fire equipment. Okay, so that's, like I said, it was off an old, and you can look at this thing. There's things on this, you know, this doesn't work. I mean, you could wire this into whatever you wanted, but I mean, I assume this goes to an old, this probably had a pressure pump on it, water pump. You see the nozzle stuff, heavy stream, just like a fire truck has. So that stuff's not used. You're gonna see that stuff and wonder what it does. Doesn't do anything. The only thing you're really using here is this. These do operate and will control the boom. I wouldn't do this unless you absolutely needed to, or we're trying to get, you know, it would be like an emergency situation. The reason I say that is because where I'm sitting, at least for what I can see, and maybe this is just the way you do this kind of lift, but it just leaves you in kind of a precarious position. So, but as far as the outriggers go, which is all I'm doing right now, that's underneath me. I don't really care. You know, nothing's gonna come down over my head. And this is left and this is right, and one they control the flow. Basically works when you're going down, rear comes down first, then pressure goes to the front, and vice versa. So that goes back up, okay, and that just basically, and then you got a level, right? So there's a little level here, side to side. You don't have any level on this thing from this way, so probably a good idea to put something on there like that. But let's go ahead and lower it down here. So you can't see what's going on, but basically that guy's getting sucked back up in there. Pads are off. Oh, and you know what, Steve? Look at that. That lock immediately went in. That clicks. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, what I was just talking about a second ago. So the moment we hit that outrigger, the moment we did it, those pins came up, locked in place just like they're supposed to, and that setup is good. There. So basically there's no, I mean, you still have function, but there's no way to lift it up with that being locked in. This here, probably just raise it up is how that gets locked in, I would imagine. And this just being something that's you can adjust later if you want. Put this in place. This is just got an all thread that they basically put on it. Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, driving down the highway yesterday, surprisingly, how stable it was. It was crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think some of the newer stuff probably did that, but the bucket, you know, you get a little bounce back here, but there was nothing. I was thinking this thing would kind of be bouncing all over it. It surprisingly is really well built. You can tell they engineer this stuff for fire trucks. They don't, no expense seems to ever spare in those things. So let me, yeah, I'm super impressed with it. So now you notice that outrigger is all the way up, okay? The rear one's down still, so kind of lower these. We don't want to have, so it's pulling the front right side up now, and you'll feel the back shift. Okay, so you can bring them up together, but it's a little hard to hold them out anyway. So okay, so that pretty much is it. Then we'll bring them all the way up. Leave the pads. You want to make sure the pads are off. You don't want to suck those up into it. It's just an aluminum cast pad, and you probably have to replace those from time to time because they're, you know, aluminum, not the strongest thing, especially on. Okay, so that sounds like it. Pretty quick, right? So it went right back in there real quick. And same with this one. They sucked all the way back in there. Okay, here you go. So you'll hear a little bit of that. Comes down. Golden, man. So I appreciate everything on that. I think I've covered pretty much. I'll give you kind of a lowdown. Just a really cool setup. A very unique setup. Probably not going to find many out there like this, especially with the reach capacity this thing's got. I'll show you. I'll go ahead, and since this video is a little lengthy anyway, these, by the way, these pads, they have a great little place here. See those holes there? Those holes, they just sit down in there. You don't have to worry. They're super light. I'm not kidding. This thing, like I fully expected these away. I'm picking that up one-handed, so I'm just with the gravel on it. Okay, so eventually just put them in there like so. That one's got to be flipped. So you see the brittle on the sides of them. People don't put them down or drop them, they're just going to break. So, but they go just like that. Got your ladder on the rear, both sides. Nice toolboxes. Air tanks here. Those are for your brakes, whatnot. Plug in for overnight. Okay, that's to make it a little easier to start in the mornings, cold mornings. Okay. You've already watched the other video, which hopefully you have, with it running. I want to show you the engine. Come on. I'm doing this one-handed. They're not very heavy. And with the nose being pulled up, you can see how steered good. It really, like I said, it's almost makes me almost want to keep this thing, but it's kind of useful to have on these. But yeah, the tires are shot. They got great tread, but they're old. They're definitely not within, I would say, spec. You got dry rot on the sides, got some splitting in here, and you got some of that there. And then your rears aren't any better. They've even got a couple chunks missing out the sides. No big deal, I guess, on that, but it's super dry. So keep in mind, tires, gonna need a set of tires on it. You know, those are probably 350 bucks each, depending on the brand. So definitely a little bit, as far as that goes, I already put brand new batteries on it. Other than that, everything else, it's got records. Like I said, the chassis got records out to, you know, forever. And I got 10 miles a gallon. That was actually way better than I thought I was gonna get. That's doing a mile high at least. I was up to 10,000 feet yesterday and pulling 2 or 3 Continental Divide 7% grade passes. That's amazing because even my little pickup trucks, when I tow with them, I'm getting usually 7 or 8. So I was very impressed with that guy. The bed is in excellent shape. The wood is, you know, it's old, but you could restain this. It doesn't look like it needs to be replaced. You could paint it if you wanted to. Obviously, anytime you have paint that comes off of anything, you're going to start seeing oxidation. That will eventually lead to rust later. It's got surface now, but if you don't take care of that, and you would want to keep up on paint on these, just like anything. But most of the bluing and all the striping and everything, that looks great. All the lights work on it. The steel bed looks good. This is your hydraulic fluid reservoir. You get a little bit of seepage around these. This is normal. You're not going to fix that. It's almost like condensation. It's just what they do. And all of them that I've ever owned, even on my brand new ones, give it 6 months and they'll do that. So mainly what we're looking for here is on the fittings, making sure they're not leaking, making sure the lines aren't leaking, all the hard lines, all the soft lines, that all checked out real nice. You know, all your rubber hoses, your cylinders, making sure they're not, you know, here's your, you know, you get a little bit of buildup where your wiper seal is, but nothing, you'll know when you blow a seal on one of those because they'll leak real good. Again, common maintenance on them. So being that this one is owned by the city, that's a huge advantage for a buyer, knowing that, and they were the original owners of it. So I've had it for a couple weeks, and if I have it for a length of time, I'll use it for some maintenance around the property. But I've had a number of emails, number of calls. I don't anticipate this thing sticking around, and going from there. So all right, I think that's it. I feel like I've covered everything I possibly can. The chassis is free of rust. It's never been in a rust state. So the frame, you can see it down here, there's absolutely no rust on it whatsoever. Not gonna have to deal with any rust on this thing as far as structural rust goes. Like I said, you're going to have little stuff like this. Just get it painted. And that probably never needed to be painted, honestly, but you could, just keep up on it. And then this is a Class B, so you will need a CDL to operate this. At least a Class B, which is basically a bus CDL. They're, depending on your state, will depend on what you got to do to get one. It used to be easier than now, but still not a hard one to get. But you do need one to operate, at least the chassis. I don't think you need anything, depending on your state. You may need something to operate the boom as well, but just to drive the thing down the road legally. Insurance, I got full coverage on it. I think it ran me $1,400 for the year. I thought that was pretty reasonable. It was another, I think $1,000 to put roadside rescue on it with the $250 deposit. That was, or deductible. That was more than reasonable. You blow a tire on one of these things and it'll cost you that on the side of the road at least. So that was through Progressive. I have a good driving record. I have no offenses. If you do have offenses on your record, it's going to be a lot more than that, I'm sure. I haven't had a ticket in probably 12 years. So anyway, again, I appreciate everything. And let me know if you have any questions, comments. Here's an hour of your life, so I appreciate you taking it with me today. If you're looking at buying one of these, I'm probably not the person to call, only because I only know what I've shown you today. I know the chassis is better than I do the boom lift. The boom lift is somewhat new to me. Luckily I have Steve here, who has been retired in this industry and in heavy equipment repairs and driving them. So I have some, it's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes. So, but give me a call on my cell. It's 970-589-2089, and we'll get you going on it. It's something you're interested in. Transportation wise, I put this in another video. I'll say it again now. We have regional airports around us. You can drive it back. Definitely watch the road one that I talk a little bit more about how it drives. It drives excellent, but some of the things like that. And you can drive it home. It probably, depending on how far you are, if you're on the East Coast, it's probably cheaper just to put this on a big truck and ship it. But and I have accounts that we can check pricing on for that. So if it's something you're interested in. All right, thank you.